Well, hello everybody, Bones here. Out here on a little trip today on my way up to Sumter, South Carolina. It's about 2 hours from Charleston. I've got about an hour and 18 minutes to go, and it's cold as blue blazes, I hope to tell you. It's 37 degrees the last time I checked. And I've got no heated gear. I've got heavy gear, but it seems to be coming through it. So I'm going to stop for gas up here in a little while and put my rain gear on, which I have seen in the past will at least cut down the amount of air migration that I'm getting. And we'll see how that does. But anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit today about Big Bad Wolf Moto and Orvis 128. Talked about why young people aren't buying motorcycles these days. And I think it's a broader question here is that why aren't anybody buying motorcycles today? I don't think it's limited to young people, but from a geezer's perspective, I think the primary reason, the absolute primary reason is cost. I don't care what anybody says. When you have $30,000 for a motorcycle, that's too much money. I can buy a car for $14,000. Why in the world would I spend that kind of money on a motorcycle? Even if you want to go buy a bare bones bike, you're going to spend 17 grand on it. And I don't care if you're young or old or in between, you're not going to be spending that kind of money. That's what I think is the primary reason. The secondary reason, I believe, is because Harley Davidson was struggling for years and years and years and years. They've always been a struggling company. And then the baby boomers started retiring. And they retired in their millions, and they all wanted motorcycles, and they bought motorcycles in their millions from Harley Davidson. Man, they built new plants, they ramped up production. Well, that was great as far as it went, but now the baby boomers have been retired for 10 years or more, and they're starting to get where the age where they can't ride anymore, or it's become too expensive, or you name it. So they're selling their bikes and putting them on the used market, which is just totally saturated the used market to the point that a friend of mine sold her Softail, and she had to give a $4,000 discount off the book price. That was the only way she could sell it. And she sold it on Cycle Trailer, and she waited plenty of time, and it was a really nice bike in really good shape, but she took a bath on it. And I believe it's because the market is so saturated right now with all the baby boomer bikes and people that are getting out of biking because they're aging out. I'm a baby boomer, and I'm certainly getting old. I don't handle the bike as well as I used to. I drop it from time to time, you know, if I'm not on my P's and Q's. So I probably only be riding a few more years myself. Probably into my late 70s, I think I'll probably keep riding, and then I'll probably have to stop. I know a couple of guys that are still doing it in their 80s, but they're all over on trikes, and I just can't see myself on a trike. It just, to me, it's the epitome of a geezer bike, and this one is considered a geezer bike by many of the younger generation. Orvis 128 is kind of an exception. The guy is as he pointed out in his most recent video, is debt-free after school, which is pretty rare. I was that way too. I had the VA bill though, the GI Bill, and that helped a lot for me, and I was able to get through school by working 2 jobs, and both of them at night, and go to school in the daytime, and I was able to get through it debt-free. And that makes a big difference in the rest of your life. I mean, as he pointed out, you got these kids coming out of college with $100,000 or more in student loan debt, and the last thing on their mind is buying a motorcycle, and they're not going to buy a motorcycle because they can't afford it. So between the outrageous costs that motorcycles are today, I mean, I bought a CB 250 Honda 1 year old in the 70s, early 70s sometime, and I paid $400 for it. And that was, you know, that was maybe a month's paycheck. Now a bike costs a year's paycheck or more. So people, it's going to get to the point where people just can't afford them. I saw the same thing happen in aviation, where the airplanes just got so expensive that the average Joe just couldn't afford to fly anymore. And that's what I think is going to happen with motorcycles. You'll still have the old bikes around until the parts get so expensive you can't afford those. But if you've got an old bike, I'd hang on to it, because you're never going to get your money back out of it, especially if you put a bunch of money in it. So that's my take on it. I'm coming into Holly Hill, South Carolina right here, and I'm going to slow down and stop and get some gas, and I'll talk to you later in the trip. Anyway, so what can Harley Davidson do to recover from this? Well, I'm not sure that they can recover from this completely. I don't think the glory days are going to come back. I think they need to downsize to get down to where they need to be for the demand that they have. The demand they had with the baby boomers was so unique and unlikely to ever happen again that they need to get real and you know, make motorcycles so the people that want motorcycles don't make motorcycles for all of the dealerships to line them up in their hundreds and then have to give them away when they get to be a year old. You can't make any money that way. So Harley Davidson, you know, I know you're not going to see this, but if you should, you need to seriously consider what you're going to do in the years ahead, because the glory days are long over. And so there you have my take on why kids aren't buying bikes and what Harley Davidson's going to have to do to survive. Have a good day, everybody.